Hi, my name is Keri Barnum. I am the Executive Director for New Shelves Books, and we are here for Free Advice Friday, the hour every Friday when we get together and talk about book marketing, publishing, and simply just grow as an author community. We've got some questions that were emailed in, and we have quite a few people live who are asking questions as well. So let's dive right in. One of the first questions we got was, should I read and make my own video audiobook? So we're not just talking about an audiobook, but a video audiobook. You may have seen this current trend of authors putting their audiobooks up on YouTube. And the goal here is that they're actually monetizing their YouTube by doing audiobooks that are video somehow, whether it be video graphics or it's actually them reading. What they're doing is they're building up their YouTube subscriptions and they're getting paid from YouTube and monetizing their channel. The answer there is you can do that. Do know that if you put that book up on YouTube, you may not be able to put it other places. And if your audiobook is licensed, like let's say Tantor or someone licensed it, you probably wouldn't have the rights to do that. However, a lot of people are doing this with success. You do need to know that to monetize your YouTube channel, you need a minimum of 1,000 subscribers. And so you need at least 1,000 subscribers. And then there are minimums about the minimum of how many hours you get people watching your channel every month. And you have to meet those to monetize. So it is something that you could do and you may eventually build up, especially if you did it by the chapter or if you did it in such a way that people were encouraged to subscribe and come back and listen week after week. You may be able to do that. Just know that in the beginning, if you don't already meet those requirements for monetization, then you're essentially giving away your audiobook for free. It can still be a great way to share your book, to get that out there. Thank you, Walt. It's 4,000 hours within the last 12 months. I was thinking 400 hours a month, so I'm almost close, but not really. So 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours watched within the last 12 months. And shorts don't count for watch time. And they do have right in your dashboard, you can see how many people are subscribing, what your hours are. Like they even have like a meter that shows you how close you are. So that's good to know as well. So if your point is to simply get your book out there, maybe get some new interest in listeners, a video audiobook can be a great idea. However, if the point is to monetize that audiobook, you do need to do some work as far as building up your YouTube subscribers to actually, move on that. Now, as far as audiobooks in general, YouTube can actually be a great spot to market your audiobook because we're getting questions on that. If you have an audiobook and you want to market it, doing small videos of you reading excerpts or of, sample chapters or sample pieces that you put up on YouTube can be a great way, if you've got a presence on YouTube, to reach more audiobook listeners through the video and encourage them to go over and buy the book or, use a credit on Audible, whatever it may be, to download the book. So that's something that you might consider as well. Audiobooks are one of those things that everyone wants them, but they're a little bit hard to market because there's not as many things in place that allow us to market the book. For example, if your book's on Amazon, you can run Amazon ads to your Kindle books and to your print books. You cannot run ads specifically for your audiobook. However, if you've done your job and you have all of your formats connected on one sales page, we know that when you're running ads for a print book or for a Kindle book, that you are driving traffic to your overall sales page, which may increase your downloads for your audiobook. So that's one way to do it, simply by running Amazon ads on any format of your book. If they're all linked up on one sales page, it's a great way for you to kind of do that and get people over to your sales page and give them the chance to download your audiobook. If you're doing keyword sponsored product ads, you can even do an ad that specifically uses audiobook words, audiobook, book on tape. You can use your narrator's names as keywords. So you can actually build up an ad that is more focused on that, even though what it's promoting is going to be the Kindle or the paperback when it actually shows up on the screen. Another great way to promote your your audiobook specifically is through Chirp, and Chirp is a discount audiobook system. So it is actually owned by BookBub. So it's the sister, brother, whatever you want to call it, to BookBub. And it works the same way. Chirp will send out discount audiobooks every day to fans who are looking for discount audiobooks. Typically, those books are going to be anywhere between free and $4.99, and they send them out. And I've seen a lot of great success where people are getting anywhere from 500 to 2,000 downloads over the course of a month and getting paid for those audiobooks and getting a lot of reviews and exposure, which again is fantastic. And Chirp is a little bit different than BookBub in the sense that BookBub simply promotes discount ebooks. They do not sell ebooks from their own platform, but Chirp actually sells audiobooks at full price, as well as offering this discount opportunity. So it's kind of a 1-2 punch. Whereas if someone, let's say you discount your first in series on audiobook and people like it and they buy it at 99 cents, well, they can go on to Chirp and still find and buy the other books in your series just at full price. So there are some different opportunities there. Audiograms are being mentioned, and that's great as well. Doing short little audio snippets for like Instagram, for Reels, for YouTube videos, for TikTok. There's a lot of social media opportunity for audiobooks that I think are great. So just a couple of ideas of how you can spread the word of your audiobook. All right, should I record my own audiobook? That is a good question. As far as should you record your own audiobook or should you have someone else record your audiobook, I think that's something that you have to answer for yourself, but be honest. Do you have a good speaking voice? Do you read aloud well? How do you do on characters? Is it something that is fiction or nonfiction? If it's nonfiction, authors are highly encouraged to read their own books because it's your voice. If it's a fictional book and you have different characters and different accents, you need to be really honest with yourself if you can do those well, or if a voice actor would do a better job of that. So, there are different considerations. You can certainly record your own audiobook. You can do it inexpensively. This is something that Derek Depker teaches. And actually, Derek's going to come, I believe, and do a webinar on doing your own audiobook and recording your own audiobook in August for us. So we'll have that coming up. But absolutely, you can do it. The question is, should you do it? And only you can honestly answer that. And if it's not your skill set, then let someone else do it. You can do different options. You can do ACX, which is the Amazon Creation Exchange for audiobooks, where you go kind of more exclusive through Audible and through Amazon. You can do an option with a royalty share with the narrator, which makes it less expensive for you to produce that audiobook. You can outright pay for someone to do it. You can use Find Away Voices and pay for a narrator, which will cost, honestly, depending on your book. If you have a narrator and you're having it produced, you will be spending several $100s per finished hour. So typically you're going to be spending $2,000 or more for a typical audiobook if you do it that way. But then you have more control of it. So again, many options here. All right. I read this week that audiobooks are at the same place a while back that Kindle was in. In other words, it's hot right now. Yes, Caroline, I've been saying that. I've been saying that for a long time, probably about 2 years. Now is that point of audiobooks where they're growing rapidly. And the authors who are jumping onto audiobooks now have marketing opportunities. The market's not as saturated as ebooks are. So when you're pitching for something like a Chirp deal, it's easier to get than a BookBub deal because they have less to choose from both traditional and indie authors. So you kind of have a one-up because it's not as saturated right now. And the audiobook market is expected to trend and to grow for about the next 5 years. So around 2027 is when we expect it to peak. But think of all the people, videos are trending. People like the audio. They like not having to read. Also, podcasts and things are trending. As people are on the go or they're exercising, they want to consume information that way. So audiobooks are hot right now. They're expected to continue to trend both in retail and in library settings. So that's something to consider as well. Do you need the price in your ISBN? And I think what you mean, Cher, is do you need a priced barcode with your ISBN? So your ISBN is just the international standard book number. That's just the 13-digit number that typically will start 978 or 979. So that's your number. That's the ISBN. I think what you mean is, do you need a priced barcode with your ISBN? And the answer is yes. If you hope to have retail sales, if you hope to get into bookstores and things like that, you do need a price barcode that includes the price in dollars, preferably if you're mostly marketing in the US, and your ISBN. If you are not really looking into retail sales, if you are really focusing on Amazon and online sales or even library sales, having the price in your ISBN is not as important. So it does need to align with your goals. But if your hope is traditional retail sales, if you're hoping for Barnes and Noble and your indie bookstore, airport stores, you must have a priced ISBN for sure. All right, and I'm going to go to some of our questions that we had in here. This one is from Eileen. Eileen had asked a question with Amy last week. I'm glad we were able to get that answered for you. And then you've got 2 follow-up questions, which I'll try to answer for you. Number 1, when pitching to an agent for the first time, when you have never had an agent, are there agents out there who will work with you even if your book is still unknown, hasn't sold too many copies? Eileen, if you published or self-published and your book isn't as known, you can sometimes still get an agent. However, you will be much more successful pitching a new project, not pitching the already published project. So do keep that in mind. You wouldn't so much pitch the same project, but a new project, and there's still opportunity on the table there. Also, I found my question as to why an agent did not respond to me. The next agent I reach out to, do I tell them it's a multiple submission? So Eileen, I know you're in the call. If you would chat with me, that might be helpful. As far as a multiple submission, do you mean, are you asking if you should tell them that you're submitting to multiple people? Because typically that doesn't really matter when we are, when you're pitching, you don't necessarily have to tell them that you're pitching to multiple people. However, if you get a response back, if you do get something back or you get interest back, it is your opportunity then to go back to the other agents and nudge them to say, I'd like you to know that I have another offer on the table, but I did want to follow up and see if there's a possibility of us working together and to see if you're interested. That is kind of what you do when you've got an offer on the table, to leverage one offer into possible multiple offers. As far as multiple submissions, it's typically expected that you would submit to multiple agents and multiple people when you are submitting your book there. All right, hopefully that I answered, but if you're on the call, and I think you are, if you have any follow-up, just let me know. All right, we had some questions from Scott, so I'm going to go through and see if I can answer them here. All right, Scott, my friend, let's see. How best to start a Facebook business page? This is really important. If you hope to use Facebook in your business marketing as an author, you need a business page. You cannot, well, you can announce things and use your personal Facebook page for that. However, it's typically private. You don't have it all public and out in the open. So it's important that you create a Facebook business page. It is not hard to do. You simply, I think it's on the left-hand side, there's like a orange flag on the column. You click on it and you do start page, and that's simply it. You type in your information. And this is important because number one, a Facebook page is public. It's kind of like a website or a landing page. So that's why it's important. Also, a Facebook business page is how you can run paid advertising and boosting posts. You cannot do that from a personal account. You must have a business page. So it's very important that you do have one up. And as far as what to post, we go with the old tried and true 80-20 rule, where 80% of your content is fun, it's interesting, it's something that your audience would be interested in, and then 20% is promotion or about your book or your product. So for you in particular, I know that you have a middle grade chapter book. 80% of that content is going to be how to get kids reading, new young adult or middle grade books being turned into movies, memes about summer or children or teachers and that kind of thing. And then 20% is going to bring in, hey, here's our book, you should check it out. Or if you love fantasy adventures, you are going to love this book. And then you promote your book. So keep that 80-20 rule in mind. And how best to find a specific Facebook group that might be good for marketing. I think it's really important when you are trying to market into Facebook groups that you keep a couple things in mind. Number one, you must read their rules. Some of them say absolutely no marketing. Some of them will give you certain days you can market. So you do need to read their rules about marketing. But the way that you find them is you simply go to the Facebook search bar and you search your genre, reading, YA reading, YA book club, middle grade fiction, chapter book reading group, anything like that. And some options will just come up from Facebook. And then you can kind of pick and choose and see which ones might be good for you. Once you get into the group, some of them do require that you get approved. Once you get in, you need to read the rules once again and just make sure that you're allowed to market. Make sure you follow those rules and then become a member. Start talking to people, answering questions. This is not an all day, everyday thing, but if you could take 5 minutes 2 or 3 times a week and kind of be a part of that community, you are more likely to be received when you start talking about your own book. And let's see. You are also asking about how to set up a Google notification so I know when my book is mentioned. And this is such a smart thing to do. Actually, it's 2 steps. Number one, you can create a Google business listing or page for yourself as an author, which means that when someone searches you or your book, you show up on the sidebar with a whole business profile. So that's super cool. And I highly recommend that authors do that for more SEO and visibility. Then the Google notification, and this is where you can actually put up a notification on Google to trigger anytime your name, your book series, or your book titles show up on the internet. Now, it's not fail-proof. It's not going, you're going to get some things, especially like New Shelves Books. We get things that just relate to books. So sometimes it's not as refined as you'd like, but it does give you a notification and you can have it set so it notifies you daily or weekly for that. The process is a little bit more intense than I've got time for today, but I will put that on my list, Scott, for a how-to video. I'm going to write it down so I don't forget. Google Alerts. I will do a how-to video on how to set up Google Alerts, and then I'll share that on YouTube sometime soon. I think it's a smart thing to do. I've had people who didn't even know they had a school library journal review until the Google alert showed up, or until we found them on Google, or people who didn't know that they're being listed on a what was it? It was a hot business books for 2020 or something like that. They had no clue. It showed up on a Google alert. And so that was fun. And I think it's something smart. It's easy to do, and I highly recommend it. Great, great ideas there. All right. Can a book price be just $10 instead of $9.99? Can we round it off? You can share. I wouldn't recommend it for ebooks in particular, because if you go over $9.99, you can't use KDP for your ebook, and it changes royalties and all sorts of mess. So I wouldn't recommend going over $9.99 for an ebook. But if you're talking about a print book, you can do a whole number. You can do 10, and that's just fine. It's up to you. Again, I know we talked about this a while back that $9.99 is typically used because it's just what sells. It's what sells, and also as far as a marketing strategy is used. If you don't like that, you are free to do a whole number, and that's not unheard of or unusual either. Is there a way to use Chirp for your audiobooks from ACX? Unfortunately, no, Denise. ACX, if you're exclusive with ACX, means that your book's only available from Audible. It's not even available to be listed on Chirp for sale. So that's not an option for you. You'd need to go through Findaway Voices to have that wide distribution. Can you change your priced ISBN barcode if you change the price? Absolutely. You do have to create a new barcode, put it on your cover, and then re-upload your cover. So it does take a little bit of work. It's not impossible to do. It's not even really hard to do, but it does take time. And keep in mind that if you're using something like Ingram Spark, then you must re-upload the new cover with the updated price barcode to Ingram Spark. And once you do that, if you are not a member of Ally or IBPA and you don't have the codes for the free upload, you will pay a re-upload charge. It's $25. So just keep that in mind. If you are unsure of your price or you think you might switch it fairly often, that's something to consider as, a minor inconvenience. And then of course the price. So it can be done. It's not hard, but you should think it through as far as it does need to be updated on your book cover. That book cover will need to be uploaded everywhere the book is sold. So if you've got on KDP, Ingram Spark, you'd upload both those places. And Ingram Spark does need to, you either need a code or you pay a fee for that re-uploaded. Let's see. All right. Pat, I see your question and it says, is this a good way to build a list? That might have been a question in regards to something that we were already talking about, but I don't remember. So if you could tell me what we were talking about and tell me what you're thinking of to build a list, I'll speak to that. All right. When should an author query 3 holiday Christmas books in 2023? Looking for the month or season. If you are querying books that you're hoping to get with an agent, I would say as soon as possible. Typically, the timeline, when we're talking about a timeline, when you're querying an agent, typically you will take anywhere from a month to 6 months to query. That's on the short end. Sometimes it takes up to 2 years. So let's just say 6 months. 6 months to query, and then that agent has to be able to make sure your book is ready and then pitch it out to publishers. Let's call that another 6 months. A year is gone. Once a publisher buys the right, they probably are not going to publish that book for another year to 2 years. So if you pitched it right now, you would still be looking at 2024 probably for actually publishing. So the sooner the better on that. Now, of course, things can move more quickly if all things align. Things can take longer if they don't align. But typically, the sooner the better. There's no like right season to pitch a Christmas books to agents because they are always looking far into the future and far ahead for their books. Even kids' holiday books, if you're pitching to an agent, the sooner the better. Those things all take time. Okay, is Google Alerts a good way to build a list? Excuse me. So Pat, Google Alerts tell you when you've been listed on Google, and it's a good way to keep abreast of when you might show up on the news or to kind of give you PR or interview opportunities. But Google Alerts don't actually give you a list of people or email addresses. So I wouldn't say it's a list builder. It's more to be aware of when your book shows up in the news, as well as, again, PR opportunities, because if someone's already listing you as a top read for 2022, it gives you an opportunity to leverage that in your marketing, as well as possibly reach out to the company or the website that put your book there and reach out to see if there's any opportunities for guest blogging or features or reviews or anything like that. All right. Why are there two paperback nonfiction sizes? Well, sure, there are lots of paperback nonfiction sizes. I've done a paperback that was a 4x7, and it was this cute little like throw in your purse book. There are so many sizes um, for your books in general. Typically, nonfiction is going to be put in 6x9 or 5.5 by 8.5 because that's what sells. That's what's currently trending. I will say 6x9 tends to be something that is going to be in paperback and hardcover or just hardcover. 5.5 by 8.5 is just a little bit more compact. And that is, of course, popular as well, especially if you're a little light on your words. If your book is not quite as thick as you would like it, going down, even a half inch all the way around means that you could add on some more pages. So that's why sometimes you see it. If the word count's a little low, it can make the book look beefier, but there are so many different sizes for all sorts of books, and it depends on your book specifically. Nonfiction is a huge genre, so it's really important that you're looking in nonfiction in your specific niche. Is it a memoir? Is it a textbook? Is it a self-help book or a meditation book? All of these things matter. So not only do we need to know the big genre, but you need to be doing research on your specific comps as well to see what's been being produced in traditional publishing in the last year and what's selling as well. Yes, a horizontal paperback nonfiction book. Like I've seen them all. You can do all sorts of things. All right, I believe I have more questions, so let me go. How old must the song be to be used in a book? Okay, excuse me, that is a great question, but that is a question for an editor. So I'd highly recommend that you get in touch with an editor and ask that question. You can also look up copyright laws. There is, of course, common law copyright, where when something is old enough, you can use it. For example, we can all use, I don't know, Shakespeare because it's old enough that that's fine. So I believe, but I could be wrong, that it's 50 years for you to be able to do that. You should still cite where the lyrics came from, but please, please, please double check that with an editor. Things could have changed. It can depend on which country you're publishing from and all sorts of things. So we do want to make sure that you always check with an editor with that type of question. Yes, we were talking about public domain, but specifically song lyrics, because sometimes, for example, I have a client who just used a poem in one of his books, and that poem, the author has been long since dead. However, the author didn't have the copyright on it. A company had the copyright, and the company actually still has the copyright. And if you want to reproduce that poem, you actually have to pay them a fee. It's not a lot, it's like $100, but that's why it's so important that if you're using and citing other things, that you really dig into that, work with an editor, and do your due diligence to make sure that you're able to use whatever reproduction you're using. And Tara's agreeing that she has heard 50 years and no more than 3 words in a row. So, I'm sorry, Caroline saying that. Valerie's saying, I recently read this great piece from Jane Friedman, which is great. It looks like there's fair use for permissions on one of her blogs. So check out Jane Friedman for that. And again, there's so many subtleties. Is this public domain for some, like Shakespeare? Is this a song lyric? Who owns the copyright? There are so many different things that go into it. And Walt saying, author Lauren Rico, who is also a Sirius XM DJ, speaks on this topic as part of the overall use of music and books. So that's another great resource. So unfortunately, no cut and dried answer there. It really does depend, and you should dig into that a little bit further. Let me see. All right. Oops. I lost my screen. I've got so many screens up. I won't lie. All right. Another question we had was, how do you become a USA Today bestseller? I get this question all the time, so many times, in fact, that I've actually written a blog about it on New Shelves. Let me pull that up. And it is Bestseller Secrets, the not so secret secrets about how you can be a bestseller on Amazon, on Barnes and Noble, and in USA Today. And really, they're not secrets. It's just knowing the rules that apply for whatever bestseller list you are attempting to hit. So let me drop this here. If you go to New Shelves and you go to the blog, you can just search bestseller, but I'll drop that in here. Yes. So everyone's like, what's the secret? And I'm like, let me tell you. There's no secret. You just got to plan and market and hope and pray and cross your fingers and toes. When you're trying to hit USA Today bestseller, keep in mind, this is simply based off of sales in 1 week. It goes from Monday to Sunday. So it's your sales based off of 1 week. Do keep in mind that if you're doing a pre-order, all of your pre-orders do count the week of your launch. However, if you have Amazon pre-orders and you launch on a Monday, Amazon calculates all of those pre-orders at the night before, at like 11:59 the night before. So all of your pre-orders, if you launch on a Monday on Amazon, go to Sunday, which does not count for that week for USA Today, which is why, again, traditionally in publishing, you'll see Tuesday launches, because they all want to make sure that if they're getting a bestseller list, that they're getting it. So Tuesday launches are definitely best if you're doing a pre-order campaign for USA Today. On USA Today, it depends on what books are trending and what's selling that week. There are certain months like July and August that are easier to hit USA Today simply because there are less books coming out in the traditional market and a little less marketing done in the summer because there's a lot of vacations happening in publishing over the summer. So that's a little tip for you. But as far as sales, typically to hit a USA Today bestseller, you are looking to sell at least 5,000 copies of your book in 1 single week. Again, from Monday to Sunday, 5,000 copies. That does include print and ebook, so it can be both. However, it's really important to note that you do need a minimum of 10% of those books to be purchased outside of Amazon. That means Barnes and Noble, Kobo, bookstores, and the like. So you really do need sales outside of just Amazon for that to happen. And again, if you're doing a pre-order, all of those pre-orders do count towards your numbers of that launch. Just make sure that you're launching on a Tuesday, not on a Monday. And again, there are some more tips in there about how you can push for it, but it changes week to week. You can't buy yourself on the list so much. Bulk orders actually get flagged. So if you're buying 30 copies of your book on Amazon or something like that, those are flagged and all of that kind of thing. So you can set yourself up well. You can hope for the best. You can try to do something like a BookBub or a discount deal where you're really driving traffic to a discount deal. Pre-orders are a great way. But in the end, you just never know if you're going to hit it until that list comes out the following Thursday. See, how many covers do you have the cover designer do? Typically, there is one design, but that design is adapted for your ebook, which is typically just your front cover of your paperback. Then you have your paperback, and the paperback is the front cover, the spine, the back. And then if you're doing a hardcover edition, you also need a hardcover cover. Now, these are, again, it's all the same design typically, it's just adjusted for sizing. So if you are doing a case laminate hardcover, let's say from Amazon, it is literally the same exact cover for your paperback and your hardcover, just sized differently. If you are doing a hardcover from Ingram Spark with a jacket, well, then you have to adjust your design because instead of having 3 sides, you now have 5 sides because you have 2 flaps. So that's something to consider as well. So it depends on what you specifically are doing, but it's one design. Like your front cover should pretty much always be your front cover. And it's going to be that way and adapted out for the other format. See, I wrote a book in first person and thought that it was very difficult. Now I'm going to write third person and think it will be easier, but I read that it's harder. My thoughts. I think it just depends on you. I think some people really excel at first person, other at third person, and I think it depends on you and your writing style. And I don't think there's one answer. I think it's kind of like the same thing as if you ask someone, is it easier to write fiction or nonfiction, historical fiction or fantasy fiction where you build your own world? Depends on the person and their own writing style. But I think it's cool to kind of play around and try different things and see what you excel out and what your groove is, because I think that's important. It shows when the writing is enjoyable for the author. It absolutely shows, and it's how a lot of authors avoid burnout as well, is finding what you love to write and how you love to write versus writing just because it's on trend. There are a lot of authors who will write to market. They will write because it's currently trending. They will research and they're just going to write whatever's out there. If it is dinosaur erotica, that's what they're going to write because it's selling. And believe me, that is a thing. If it is fantasy, if it's nonfiction, if it's historical fiction, they're just going to read the market. They're going to find the tropes and they are going to write to market. And typically those authors sell a lot. Many times they're indie. I'm not kidding, Valerie. I am not kidding. Don't look it up. They are going to market well. They're typically going to sell well. Many times they're indie authors who are doing that. And I won't lie, they make a lot of money. But I also see a lot of burnout because they are not necessarily writing what they love. They're writing as a job. And if you do any job 80 hours a week, if you're pushing it and pushing it, you can be successful, but that doesn't mean you won't burn out. So it's certainly value in writing to market and writing to sell, but I think there's something very special about writing what you love and writing what fits for you as well. What is the procedure for doing special edition leather-bound gold gilded books? Do you buy them yourself as author and resell? Typically, it depends on if you are publishing or not. If you have a publisher, you may not have the rights to make a special edition. If you are self-publishing, then yes, you would do a special edition. It would have its own ISBN. And this type of book would have to go through a specialized printer, and it's going to be fairly expensive. So keep in mind that if you're buying offset print, you're going to have to buy a number of these books. How are you going to sell them? That's important. Are you going to get an Amazon seller account? Are you going to just sell them directly back of house if you're speaking? Are you going to sell them through GoFundMe? Are you going to sell them on your website? That is something to consider before going after a special edition that's going to be quite costly, because those things do cost. And the lower volume, the more they cost per item. So if you are buying 50 of these, it's going to be more expensive than if you're buying 500 of them. But again, overall, who are you hoping to sell to? Who do you think will enjoy this volume? And why are you doing it? Are you doing it because it's something you want? Are you doing it something because you think it's marketable? These are all questions you need to ask yourself and align with your own personal goals. All right. I think I got through all of our questions, you guys. So if you have any last questions, please let me know. Again, for those of you who've been waiting to hear from me, thank you for your patience. It has been quite the week. I do see you all, and I am taking time today to try to get through those. And so I will happily do that as much as possible. But if there is anything you need, please let me know. I hope that you all have a wonderful 4th of July. I hope that you enjoy fireworks and family and all the fun stuff. We will plan to be back next Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern. I also have my beautiful and wonderful assistant, Catherine, is back as well. And she certainly helps keep me on track. So you all should be getting answers soon if you've been waiting on me. Thank you for being here. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back next week. And until then, we'll see you next time. Bye.